Hey, welcome back. The Judicial Service Commission held interviews for at least 21 vacant posts for the country's superior courts. The judges were quizzed on a wide variety of matters, and it appears this time the interviews went without controversy. Well, let's bring in Mbekezeli Benjamin. In fact, it would appear that they didn't go without controversy, is what I mean to say. Mbekezeli Benjamin from Judges Matter joins me now for that conversation. And the reason I say, Mbekezeli, that it didn't go down without controversy, and the reason I asked that we speak to you has to do with this candidate for the position for Judge President of the Limpopo Division. And please bear with me as I outline my thinking, and then you can tell me what you as an organization think. I mean, to hear a judge talking about Pedi judges, Tsonga judges, and Shangan judges, I don't know what other phrasing he was using there, and then failing dismally to justify what that was all about, but also saying that it's based on some correspondence from anonymous sources. It suddenly got me thinking about another instance where we had another judge who had written no less than 50 judgments who didn't know about the Plascon Evans rules, and I was worried, Mbekezeli. So just tell me your own thinking. How revealing are these interviews at the JSC of the caliber and quality of judges in the various courts?
Good afternoon to Lasizwe and to the viewers. Well, the interviews are revealing, and they should be. We expect that people who want to be judges in our courts are able to answer very difficult questions about their own views of the law, but also their track record as judges or as lawyers. So often these interviews have, like you said, have been dramatic, have involved a lot of side shows. But this time around, a lot of the interviews were focused on the track records of the different candidates. So one of the judges, like you said, was asked about his own views on actually, to something he brought up himself about the tribal dynamics that are happening in the Limpopo High Court. And when he was pressed about it, when he was asked specific questions about the issue, he failed to do so. And that tells you that he took seriously what was really rumors that were out there circulating in the public. And that is not someone that you want to hand over a responsibility of leading a high court division. And to no surprise, he was not appointed as such. So yeah, they are revealing for good reasons, though.
Yeah. So his name is Judge Mbekezeli. I've just looked it up. But revealing is one thing, Mbekezeli. Having a remedy is quite another, right? Just like I was worried when I saw that judge around that issue of the Plascon Evans rule. Basically, she had no idea what the then Deputy Chief Justice was talking about. And the then Deputy Chief Justice ended up saying that, well, it's either you know about it or you don't. And if you don't, then, you know, it is what it is. I then started asking myself, though, what happens with these candidates after the interviews at the JSC? And I think that's really where my worry is, that we are not talking here about people aspiring to become judges. These are people who are already judges. They come and display this kind of aptitude at these interviews, and then what? They go back to deciding the fate of South Africans?
Well, it's important to clarify that Plascon Evans incident was, that candidate was an acting judge. She's a practicing advocate in Pretoria. So she, at the time, wasn't a permanent judge of the High Court. And the reason why that was important, well, the question was important, was to test whether she understands basic civil procedure, which is an area of the law that she hadn't practiced in, and that told the commission that she wasn't ready for appointment, and she wasn't appointed. But also we must acknowledge that these are really high pressure environments. To sit before a commission of 23 very experienced, very knowledgeable people who ask you very difficult questions, and you are on television. It's not an easy feat. I would fail in those interviews. But at the same time, we do have to acknowledge that there is a level of knowledge and experience that someone must have, and these interviews do test that kind of knowledge and experience. And unfortunately, if you don't meet the standards, then you are not appointed, and it shouldn't really be concerning to us when we see people who don't perform so well in interviews. After all, it is an interview to assess your fitness.
So Mbekezeli, a part of me has been feeling that we need some kind of a fail-safe mechanism that says once you've displayed that kind of performance, let's call it that, at the JSC interviews, it might raise a red flag to say, yes, you practice in the area of criminal law more than civil proceedings, but the fact remains that there are certain things that are basic that you should know, and say, I've not had the occasion to apply those principles because of where I've been practicing, but I know what they are and broadly what they stand for. So I've been wondering if there needs to be a fail-safe mechanism that says, once we've seen you perform in this way at these interviews, it might trigger an automatic review, sampling of your judgments. Because to be honest with you, I'm really worried that if some of the performances we see are of people on a daily basis who are making decisions that sometimes affect the liberty of people, we may have problems here. I mean, for a judge to not see anything wrong with tribalist statements based on rumors is worrying.
Mm. Yes, look, Thulasizwe, we have to look at this in perspective. I agree with you that certain of the things that do come out in the interviews are worrying, but like I said, this is a highly pressurized environment. So for all we know, someone could know the principle. And actually the candidate that was interviewed on the Plascon-Evans rule, she has written judgments which were correct on the Plascon-Evans rule. It's just that at that time, she could not recall it, which is, I think, a fair assessment when you look at the kind of environment that is. But part of the issue that I had when I watched that interview, and I was actually sitting in the interview of the candidate who raised up tribalist issues, was that he wasn't nuanced. He couldn't really justify the point that he was making. And I don't necessarily think that he was sort of extreme prejudicial or biased or prejudiced in any way against a single person, but he was sort of raising a dynamic that people perceive to exist in the High Court. He could have raised it better. He could have been more nuanced in how he raised it, but I don't think we can hold it against him. Similarly, for future candidates, when they come before the JSC, when they don't perform well, yes, they probably shouldn't be invited again to be acting judges, but I don't think that we should necessarily read everything there is about their credibility.
I get your point fully. I accept what you are saying. It is convincing. Lastly, what's your sense of the tone of the interviews? You remember there was a point where it seemed everything was building up towards a more politicized, highly charged process that didn't really serve what we are trying to serve in terms of trying to get jurists for our judiciary. Since that matter was raised sharply and addressed in various ways, has it toned down? Are we now more focused? Tell me about the performance, for instance, of people like Thembeka, who's getting rave reviews for his performance as a commissioner.
Well, I wouldn't single out an individual commissioner for their performance, but I would look at the body as a whole, the Judicial Service Commission. This week has been really impressive. The criticisms that they have attracted before, the kind of issues, the drama and the scandal that came up during interviews in the past, we didn't see that because the JSC this time around decided that they will be more focused on the job of finding the best people to be judges in our courts. But also they did something that we've been criticizing them a lot about is them drafting criteria for judicial appointment. They've finally gotten around to doing that, which to us is a sign that the JSC is committed to changing and committed to doing better. So I would give them a high score to say they scored a 9 out of 10 this week. And yeah, they performed well.
That's good to hear. Thank you for your time and your insights. Mbekezeli Benjamin of the organization Judges Matter. They keep track on all things that have to do with the state of the judiciary, and not only judges, but also the magistracy in this country.